Welcome to Green Minds.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you here, Megan.
Thank you. Excited to be here. I'm excited to have you here in San Francisco.
I know.
Such a treat. Yeah.
It's really weird that I'm in San Francisco, and I'm really happy to be here with you.
Yes.
Just a little bit of background of how we met.
Yeah.
Megan is an amazing founder. You will find a lot about her today. And pretty much she's a Teal Fellow, and she's one Teal Fellow that you will admire all the time. And that's how we met.
Yes.
We became really close by, and I really loved it.
Yes.
Because she's amazing. She's an incredible founder. She's a great friend. And then we started skiing together every year.
Yes, every year, always. Good way to like keep up with people's lives in the busy world of being an adult.
Exactly like that. So she will tell you a little bit more about what she does, and I'm really excited to have you here so you can tell us your story and your incredible, passionate story around how you started your company.
Yes, I think the most important thing that I like to tell people about me and my company, because I always think of what's the context of what people need to know to see like if my advice is useful to them. I started my company when I was in high school. I started a consumer packaged goods product, so not techie, physical products. You know how the scene is. And I grew it to be a multi-million-dollar company without investors. So instead of raising VC funding and angel funding, I actually competed in business competitions to win $116,000 to fund the initial production and hiring of humans. And then I got the Teal Fellowship, of course, like you, and that was $100,000 in seed funding. And when I started my company, I knew that I could get it off the ground with under $300,000, which is quite uncommon. The advice was,
weird.
No, you should raise more money and do more. And I saw my company as a learning avenue, like a way for me to learn and grow, and I wanted to challenge myself and do it bootstrapped. So that is some context, important context. My company makes adhesives for glucose monitors. So commonly for type 1 diabetes or metabolic health or athletes, people wear glucose monitors so they can see what their blood sugar is at any time. I originally built a material to prevent allergies. It can be worn under the device to prevent allergies, over the device to keep it on for up to 28 days. And because people wear them on their bodies for, on average, 2 weeks, we do fun designs. So we do custom skin tones and giraffes wearing sunglasses, and we have over 200 floral designs. So we inadvertently became a design company, and I love that.
I really love that. It's really impressive because at the end, you are using something like this for the rest of your life because the people that use your product, like they have this for the rest of their life, and it's really important to make it your own. You know, emotionally helps a lot too. And I think it's really important to have the allergy situation.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody cared about that maybe a couple years ago, and you started this part.
Thousands of people are allergic to their glucose monitors, and the one of the most meaningful things to me was to hear about our customers. I actually flew one of them into our office to interview her. She was waiting for a glucose monitor because sometimes it takes a while for type 1 diabetics to be approved. Sometimes it takes a while for them to be able to afford a glucose monitor. And I couldn't imagine her waiting and then not being able to use it because she was allergic to it. So I love that our material can help people wear necessary medical devices that they're excited about without allergies. So I love it. I love that. And I think that part of starting a business is to kind of dive into quality and making sure that your product can be more than just a fun thing and have that useful element and the fun element as well.
I definitely agree with you. I think in general, this part of consumer goods, sometimes they tend to be really fun, but they don't have like a background of like make it accessible for everyone and like, that someone can be using it no matter what, and like what you put in your skin is even more important, you know? It's
like itchy skin or healing skin with scabs. You don't realize like how ever present that is. Like imagine having something bothersome on your body 24/7. I mean, some people will say that CGMs even are something you're aware of all the time. So it's already, people with type 1 diabetes have to
be careful.
Have to like deal with a lot more than the average person. So going the extra step and having allergies, it's so nice to be able to prevent that. But
I
yeah,
do agree.
I agree. People who are really talented at entrepreneurship, it's so nice when they go down the avenue of making humanity better, making life easier for people instead of just doing the fun, gimmicky stuff, even though the fun stuff is fun.
It's fun. So you have to
it's so fun when you can do both. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's the point.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about the part of like the development because it's like the material itself, it's like something different that exists in the market.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious about how did you notice that issue? How were you like, this is something that I should be thinking of and I want to do it. It's like, what's the motivation behind it?
Yeah.
How did you end up in there?
And this is part of my story that I've never shared online before. So I'm like, I have to make sure I don't say anything too confidential, but I don't think I will.
Don't worry, if not, we can delete it.
Yeah. I'm like, this is me practicing. But yeah, I'm super excited to share the story of how I got started and like working towards a material used in a unique way. I was 17 and I was at a summer camp at the University of Pennsylvania, and they gave us an ID card to get into the buildings. That would get me into any building. So I could go to, the material science labs, I could go to the library, I could go to like the Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania because it was on campus.
Wow.
Which is where I talked to like nurses and doctors who worked with type 1 diabetics. It was so nice. Also, if you ever, you probably know this way more than I do, but for me, if you don't have credibility yet and you want to talk to doctors and nurses, buy them lunch because they have no free time and they need to eat. That's what I learned.
It's true.
Yeah, if you say like, hey, can you like set up a meeting when you're free? They're like, what is free time? Like, we don't have that, actually.
I don't even have time for my family. Why would I do that for you?
Exactly. And it was so real. And I was like, but if I buy you lunch and talk while you're eating, they're like, yes. So yeah, little life hack. But yeah, I talked to nurses about like what was bothersome when it comes to CGMs and diabetes. And actually at the time I was mostly concerned with infusion sets, which is another type 1 diabetes wearable. And I also was able to go into the material science labs as a high school student. I said I was a junior studying entrepreneurship, which is true, but people thought I was a junior in college. And I would ask them like, what even is tape? I owe all of my knowledge to asking dumb questions to smart people. And if you think about it, material science scientists and material science majors, people aren't like asking them about material science at the bar, like when they catch up with friends. Like, it's not a popular subject, but
Definitely
they
not.
love it. Yeah. And so they were telling me how different acrylates work and how different surface materials work and the difference between like the liner and the backing and like all these different pieces of tape. And then it was mostly like data gathering to start. And then I looked at what was available to type 1 diabetics and people who wear insulin pumps and glucose monitors. And there was a lot of things that wouldn't do what I wanted to do. I actually started the company not to protect people from allergies and keep their devices on longer. I fully started the company because my friend wanted a heart-shaped tan line from her insulin pump. So I was like,
I love that.
Yeah. I wasn't like, I'm going to change the world. I'm like, this would be the cutest Christmas present ever.
Yeah. It's a great way to start, though.
It is. Yeah. Like, solve a problem for a friend or family member, something that like gets you excited. I'm like, oh, this would be so exciting if I could figure this out. And the materials that I found at the pharmacies either like were see-through. Tegaderm is a great material, but it's see-through. And so I'm like, oh, we want to get heart-shaped tan lines. Or the materials would be woven and fray, or like they wouldn't be breathable. And so they wouldn't stay on for a long time because sweat would build up under them. So I talked to the material science majors, learned about what type of material I wanted to build. And then I was able to go to different material innovation centers and manufacturing facilities in central Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota to like build. And it was so
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great way to start in terms of like, you were just curious about it.
Yeah.
You got the people in there in the university just because you were there.
Yeah.
You were really curious.
Yes. Yeah.
I really love that. I didn't know that part of yourself.
I know, because I never talk about it. Because I'm like, what if I accidentally say something proprietary?
Don't worry.
Yeah, but I didn't.
You did it perfectly.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I really love that. I think part of innovation is curiosity in how you started.
Oh, it's 100%.
You were curious about your friend, but then it combine yourself into something like, I should solve this. And it ended up doing more impact than what you thought. And I think that's the most amazing part of it.
Yeah. And I think with entrepreneurs and like this idea of CEOs being smart and like making all the right decisions, people have this fear of like telling people they don't know something or asking the dumb questions. But I feel like every CEO starts with dumb questions. They're like, I don't know what's happening in this industry. Can you tell me? Like that's because if you get all of your information from the internet, like none of that's special. Everyone has access to it. But if you're talking to like the material scientists trying to build something new, trying to understand something at depth, you learn a lot more than what you can find on the internet.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. It's really curious because I think in general, we forget that once you get like passing the years, you start being a little bit less curious because you are like, oh, I already passed through that. I think I could do it. But I think the best CEOs are the ones that keep their curiosity on top of their mind all the time. I think it's incredible because then you have that hunger of still learning a lot and like you can implement it in any part of your company. And I think it's great. I really love that. So I think in this journey, you'll for sure had great times and bad times. So I would like to talk about the bad times because nobody talks about that. So can you tell a little bit more around what was the worst time or the worst scenario that you passed in the last couple of years that you were like, fuck, I don't know how I'm going to go out of here and how
I'm going to tell you 2 stories. Let me know which one you want first. There was a story where when I'll just go for it. And
just go for it.
In a good, well-constructed way. So when I think about the worst times in the history of me running my company, there's a time where I thought the company was financially going to fail, and there was a time where I was the most emotionally distraught, and I will tell you both.
Wow, that's so cool. I love both.
There's many different flavors of failure. So the time when I thought the company was going to fail, like I would just have to shut it down, there was no hope of building it into anything, was in the early days when I would spend all of my money on manufacturing. Because when you have a physical product, you make money from selling the product, and then you have to spend it all on building the product. Because if your sales are growing and you have to buy 3 months worth of product with 1 month's worth of money, like you're really working with small margins. So I remember I had just spent $30,000 on product, and I was like 19 years old. This is the most money I've ever seen in my life. And the manufacturer that we were working with at the time to print, actually, I need to re-say that. So I had spent $30,000, which is more money that I had seen in my life. And the converter that we were working with sent me a request for a quote that showed me how the product was going to be printed. And the engineer had asked the engineer had put on the request for a quote that he was going to put a primer on my material before the ink went on the material. And I noted that, and I didn't sign off on it. And I was like, no, you cannot put a primer on this material. The ink will probably just congeal to itself and peel off. It's not going to work. My material's too stretchy, breathable for that. Bad idea. And the engineer was like, okay, like, we won't do that, whatever. I get the $30,000 worth of product, and all of a sudden, we start getting emails from our customers that the ink was flaking off. And I was like, oh my goodness, they must have put the primer on $30,000 worth of product. And I was freaking out because I'm like, well, I can't sell any of this. It's going to take me another 6 weeks to get more product, and I have no money. I spent all of my money on this. So I message them, and I say, hey, I told you not to do this. It very much looks like you put a primer on this material. And they were like, yeah, we put a primer on the material because we said we were going to put a primer on the material. Like, we sent you that in writing. And I was like, yeah, and I didn't sign it. And then in writing, I said, no, don't do that. And they're like, ooh, we're going to run this past our quality assurance department. I waited for like 2 weeks. The quality assurance department got back to me, and they said, we didn't do anything wrong. Good luck. And I was so scared. I was like, I don't have money. I can't sell this. At this point, we had 400 customers who sent pictures. Like, I put this on my kid. It's flaking. My kid doesn't like it anymore. I'm angry. All these things. And so I had to like play hardball. Like, if you, as a young founder, you're an easy target. And so you have to show people, like, you can't mess with me because they want to find young entrepreneurs they can mess with. So I wrote a letter to the CEO of this company. Actually, no, I wrote an email. And I said, here's all the evidence. Like, I did not sign this. Here's 400 emails from my customers of them having problems with the product because you did what I told you not to do. So you can write me a check today or I will sue you for the amount of money plus damages. They sent me a check that day. And I was like, thank goodness, because I don't know how to sue people. Like, I was just talking. I was like,
You're like, I was 19.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm sure I could sue him, but like, I don't know how that would work. I would figure it out. But I was like, woo, the company lives to see another day. And then it was also a really good lesson in customer service because I messaged the 400 people that had the product and I was like, do you want money back? I'm so sorry. And out of the 400 people, I think only 6 were mad. Everyone else was like, oh, some people were like, yes, I'll take my money back. Thank you so much. Some people were like, I don't even need my money back. I'm wearing this under my sweater. I don't care. They were so cool. Nice. Yeah. So nothing is as bad as you think. But if your money is on the line and people are taking advantage of you, you have to defend yourself like you would defend someone you care about. I learned that in therapy. So
I agree with that because apart from that, when you're a younger founder, they think that you are thinking ahead about the money side.
Yeah.
They think that, they don't care. It's like, it's their first time. Nobody cares. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then they will take advantage of that. Yeah. But I think sometimes we could be tougher than them. It's like, no fucking way. It's the first time that I'm doing this and this is not going to happen ever again.
Yeah.
And I love that you send the email to the CEO or the director of the company because what? They screwed it up. Like, what?
Yeah. Also, if you want to get CEOs' emails, if you use a Chrome extension called Rocket Reach on LinkedIn, you can get their email.
That's a really great tip.
Yeah, I love it. That's what I use in that exact situation. Because like if I asked them for their CEO's email, they'd be like, no, we don't want to get in trouble. So yeah, it was so useful, and it literally saved the company. And then the other failure where I was the most emotionally distraught. I have a very emotional connection to people. I think it's why I'm a good CEO. Like, someone's frustrated, I'm like, I will do whatever it takes to make you happy. And also having bootstrapped, owning 100% of my company, didn't have a lot of money to start with. I worked with my friends in the beginning, and I worked with 2 different friends for 2 years, and I paid them and everything. I paid people before I paid myself. I didn't pay myself for 3 years, but firing a friend is like the most heartbreaking thing because in one case, my friend, this was right before the pandemic, my friend who was the closest person in my life for 2 years, we had always said, like, our friendship is more important than the company. She said, if you fired me, I'd understand. People don't understand when it actually happens. Her performance improvement plan deliverable was either complete your work on time or let me know it's going to be late so I can accommodate for that.
Yeah.
And she didn't do that. So I had to fire her. And I was like, after a friendship of 2 years, the closest person in my life, like we were linchpins in a friend group. So if I lost her, I would lose the friend group. She said, if I saw you, I'd say hi, but I wouldn't talk to you. And I was like, so sad.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
It was hard too.
Yeah, I know. And it was right before the pandemic. And I was like, I'm so alone. And so that was really hard. And so, but it's hard because I loved working with a friend. It was so fun. I got to hang out with my friend every day at work. And so I always tell people, if you work with a friend, know that you're risking losing that friend. And if it's worth it, chill. And if it's not worth it, don't do it. Yeah. And they say, the struggles in life keep repeating themselves until you learn a lesson. So this was actually the second time I did this. When I started my company, the friend that I paid before I paid myself, I was in my last business competition in my run of business competitions was for $75,000. So it was a huge deal.
It's a lot.
I know, but they wouldn't let me pitch by myself because they wanted to encourage more students to participate. So I wrote my little speech and I bought me and my best friend matching outfits. Like I had pink pants and a navy shirt and she had navy pants and a pink shirt. And I was like, you're going to do the pitch with me. We're going to be this dynamic duo. And she was working for the company at the time. She was doing social media. I'm like, this is going to be the cutest thing ever.
I love
it. The business competition, and I'm so mad at them. They're the person that initiated this problem. But in the terms and conditions, they said that the foundation that sponsored the business competition would write a check to the winning company. So I'm like, nothing is at risk. We're all good here. The school who hosted it ended up being my school. And because we were both students, if they wrote us personal checks, it would count as scholarships and it would make them look cooler on all the which school gives the most entrepreneur scholarships. So, won the business competition. Each of us gets a check personally for $37,500. So she's like, I'm going to keep this. I don't need you anymore. Goodbye. And I was like, so one, I had half as much money as I thought I would have for the company. And two, lost a friend. And so felt very betrayed. And so it's so dramatic. Yeah.
That's so intense.
I know. Yeah.
Like literally they stole you. That doesn't work out.
I know. And so then I'm like, I can't trust anybody. Like I thought I knew them. And then it's like, it's hard. It's hard to make friends. It's hard to date when you have trust issues.
And I think also being a founder,
dating,
having friends in general, it's really hard. And when you're younger, even worse.
Exactly. That's why like being friends with other founders is good. Being friends with other founders who aren't directly in your industry, who don't work for you.
It's really helpful. I think it's really helpful.
It's good. That's good advice.
It's a good advice.
Founder friends, typically a win.
Yeah.
A dub. Yeah.
I definitely agree with you in that part. And it's like so harsh. I do feel connected with that part of like, don't work with friends, because I also had to fire one of my best friends.
It's so hard.
It's so hard because you think that I think I have the maturity to talk with them and like split my personal life with work life.
Yeah.
Because I will not be messing them up.
Yeah.
But they don't. They say that they do, but they don't. And I think it's so hard. And
it's so hard.
Then you question yourself. I don't know if that happened to you, but I was questioning myself like,
am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Am I the problem?
Oh, it's the classic, especially when you're young, high school age, college age.
Yeah.
When these are the first times you're having like deep interpersonal conflict, where you're rereading your text message 100 times. Like, is that too harsh? Does that make sense? Am I saying what I want to say? Am I being mean? Like, am I there's that meme, am I the drama? I might be the drama. And so it's like, you really question yourself, like, did I cause this? And it's an important thing when you're starting a company to know your role in everything. Like when things go right, what did I do that contributed to success? When things go wrong, what did I do to contribute to this failure? And so it's very easy to be like, this is all my fault. But it's every struggle makes you stronger. That's what they say. Just doing reps, pumping iron,
Screw it a lot of times so you can just rep with those.
Yeah. Whenever I see a really successful founder, I'm like, you had a rough time starting. Yeah, your life must have been crazy. And they just look at you and they're like, yeah.
I do agree. I think we all have this myth that successul entrepreneurs, they just become successful.
Yeah, or that it's easy. Every successful entrepreneur will say they got lucky. And I think every single one of them did, in a sense. I think people are like, was it luck or was it like intellectual, like prowess and hard work? It's all of them.
All of them.
Yeah, I know geniuses who are smarter than me and less successful than me. I know dumb people who are more successful than me. So it's like there is elements of luck and then there is elements of intellect and hard work. And so denying that, they all kind of mesh together is just silly.
It's silly. Yeah. I think in general, most of the times, as founders, because
we get so traumatized, we avoid talking about the bad part.
Yeah.
And then we're like, everything's doing well, whatever. And then you're like, I need help.
Yeah. The classic founder story.
I think it is like that. And talking about this part, like we always have advisors. We're always looking for that. And like, you're that type of person that I always admire. And I'm always like looking to talk with you and like understanding more about you and like how things go. Yeah. I am assuming that you had advisors.
So many different advisors for different things.
Exactly. So I want to ask this question around like, what was the worst advice you ever received? Because I think sometimes we get really incredible advice and I want to know what made you think, oh, this doesn't make sense. I did it and I screwed it up. And how did you come up with it? Like how you were like, I'm done with this advice. This doesn't work out. I can give you an example. For me, someone told me, like, you know, if you're struggling too much and if you have fear, you should not be doing that. It means it means that it's too much for you and that you should not be pursuing that stuff.
Yeah.
But something that so far I've noticed in myself is that if I have that fear, I feel more like projected. I feel like better because it means that I'm doing something big enough that motivates me, you know?
Yeah.
So now when I hear that piece of advice where like, oh, just don't do things that you feel like it's too much. Now I do the opposite, you know?
Yeah.
So, I would like to know if you received something like that.
That was actually really useful. I think of that caliber, the worst advice I've ever received is any sort of advice that goes like too deeply into work-life balance, where they're like, you always should get 8 hours of sleep, like you should meditate, you should always prioritize your health and wellness. And I think there's, again, like nuances to that where you should prioritize your health and wellness. But sometimes if I'm working on a project and I'm obsessed with it and I'm like grinding on strategy or developing a system or building something out, I could be at my desk for 12 hours straight and I don't eat and I don't drink enough water and I don't talk to anybody.
I like it.
And I love it. And people are like, that's so unhealthy. And it's like, yeah, I don't do it every day.
Exactly.
And like my friends have my location. Like one time my friend showed up at my apartment and she's like, you haven't left your apartment in 3 months. And I was like, that's not true. And she's like, I have your location. You can't lie to me. And I was like, oh. So like I have people that check in on my well-being to make sure I don't become a hermit. But like sometimes if you feel that like energy and drive of working on a problem, like I guess I can't necessarily give this as advice, but like if you're not like at peak health and like self-care, it's okay.
I think I agree with you because sometimes, you know, there's a moment when I feel so pressured about like, oh, I need to take care of myself. I need to go and exercise. I need to do this. And then you have a lot of things around you and then you're just flowing with what you're doing and you love what you do. And sometimes you don't take that in consideration.
Yeah.
I think if you do it every day, it might be terrible eventually. But if you do it like every couple times, and it's important to have that balance.
Yeah.
And it's not balance. I'm a fan of like life. It's a lot of not balanced stuff. You know, it's like I will be so passionate about it and then I will not care at all about this. And it match at the end goes into a middle.
Yeah.
I agree with it.
Yeah. And I do think from early days, like my self-care has improved. Like I have a list of like what my boundaries are. So for example, I don't take red-eye flights anymore because I know it messes up my sleep. And so I'm like, I will like move a meeting later in the afternoon to be on a flight that leaves at 7 a.m. instead of midnight to 7 a.m. So like those are my little like self-care things.
Which make a lot of sense. It works for you, and it's like not something that you should be thinking like, oh, it's balanced.
Yeah. But I will, like, there are some people who are like, I always go to bed at 10:30 and nothing can stop that. And I'm like, me, passionate work does supersede going to sleep at the exact same time every day, which people will fight me on for sure. So that's okay. It's a personal choice.
I think it's a personal
DIY
choice.
life. So
you're building also the life that you want.
Exactly.
And I think it's okay to just have different routines or different stuff.
Yeah.
Each one of us is
sometimes
different.
the innovation and like the idea flow and the problem solving mindset is fleeting. Like I'm like, if I press pause and come back tomorrow, I won't have the same energy. Sometimes you know, pressing pause and coming back the next day with a new mindset is good. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not. And like the more you innovate, the more you like can tell the difference.
Yeah, so. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think that you're really on into innovation in your company. And I think that's one of the most exciting parts. How can you manage that part of being so innovative and being the CEO of a bootstrap company?
Yes.
Like, how do you do that?
I prioritize innovation. Like I said, like I give myself space for it. I hire for my deficits. I think no one gave me this advice. This is just a unuseful belief that I had all by myself. And it was, I used to think that as a bootstrap founder, I had to be good at everything. Mm-hmm. Like I had to be really good at ops before I could hire someone at ops. But the skill set to execute operations is different than the skill set to hire for operations. So I wish I would have leaned towards like hiring for operations instead of being the perfect operations person first. Yeah. And so to leave myself space to be the innovator, I had to hire people to do the operations and like let that go. And I had to set different levels of quality analysis. Like I used to read all of the marketing collateral. And now, I mean, in the beginning, I was like, what is our brand voice? And I really wanted to like shape that. But now we have like SOPs and like guides, like brand guides that kind of are that for me. And I'll quality check like one thing every 2 weeks just to make sure that
things
aren't slacking. You kind of got to do that. Don't let things go too far.
Much.
Yeah. But it leaves me room to innovate. And then, I think also being a bootstrap founder, I have the luxury of innovating whenever I want, even if it's not the most economic choice. Like if I want to develop a new product for a new industry, and it's risky, like it economically is better to focus on one core product and like distribute it as far as you can before you distract yourself. Sometimes I make a choice to like build on a new product for fun and joy and like to keep the innovation wheels turning, and I love it.
I think that's really incredible, and I think nobody talks about those perks of being bootstrapped.
Yeah. Like I don't have shareholders to answer to. It's just me. I like look in the mirror and I'm like, I love this. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So I think because you're bootstrapped, I think it's even better. I think it's a harder way to go, but so far, so everyone can understand the impact that you had. So what's the hard data that you have to date? Like, how many people have used your stuff?
Oh my
How much of them are you
saving? Like, I love those kind of data because I think it's like a wrapping up of like everything you have done.
Yeah.
It's so impactful. So.
Yeah, I would say I don't know the exact number because Amazon really guards their customer data. So like when I think about like the unique customers on Amazon and the unique customers on my website, it could be up to 250,000 customers.
Wow.
But I feel like there's some crossover. So I think like between 200,000 and 250,000 people use our product. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, and I don't know, like we give a lot of samples to clinics and like underserved communities, and we don't count those. But like, paying customers, about 250,000.
I just love that. It's a lot.
It's crazy. Yeah, if you don't do D2C, you're like, that's insane. My customer service manager is a saint because if you have 250,000 customers and 1% of them send you like angsty emails, that's 2,500 angsty emails, you know? So yeah, but it's fun. And also like if you look at our Instagram feed, all of our marketing images and videos are our customers. And so so fun to see like the joy and like fun they have with the product.
I really love that. I think it's really impressive and you're doing something really important. So just the last question, which is around sustainability.
Yes.
I care a lot about sustainability. So I would like to understand how, like, if you think about that in your company, how do you do it? How things are going? What are you implementing to make your company more sustainable?
So way from the beginning with innovation and materials and thinking about like the beauty of building a product is, every element of the supply chain from like how like the polymers are built and how the inks are, formed and utilized. And early days when I was thinking about what materials to use for inks, I learned that there was a lot of people taking shortcuts in the industry. So for example, UV inks aren't necessarily negative for the environment, but if they don't fully cure, they can leach into skin and be cancer causing. And I was like, I'm not about to put cancer causing chemicals on 250,000 people. And so like avoid that. And then solvents in inks, they create a byproduct that is like a forever chemical. And there's like really not a good way to dispose of them. So we don't use solvents because I'm like, I don't want to be producing hundreds of thousands, actually millions of tapes every single year that are like having this byproduct that's negative to the environment. So those were my intentional choices. Then we're lucky we have some unintentional environmental benefits of our product. There's one of the most used CGMs by our customers is the Dexcom G6. And if you Google Dexcom G6 applicator, huge piece of plastic, like this big, and it's a one-time use, throw it away. And so by extending the lifetime of these devices from 3 to 5 days 8 years ago to 10 to 14 days, people are objectively using half as many and throwing away half as many. And
that's so cool.
It's an insane amount of plastic. Yeah. And so
it's insane.
I wasn't like, oh, I'm doing this for the environment. I was doing it for the customers so they would pay less. But yeah, unintentionally, it did help the environment. So we think about that sometimes.
I think that's really great because sometimes we think about specific choices that we do, and I think it's really important because definitely what you're doing saves a lot to the environment, and I think it's really on purpose, and I love that. But also the impact that you have apart from that because of a third-party product, it's really amazing. And I think that's when you know that you have a powerful product like yours, because you are not only saving what you do and what you choose, but even more. You're literally changing the industry with that, and I think it's really impressive.
And I think for like consumable products, it's so important to I think a key element of valuing sustainability over profit. Okay, I need to say that slower because now I had a huge plus. I think a key element and a key responsibility for consumer packaged good founders is to value sustainability over profit. And a big way to do that to benefit the customer is to make products that last longer. There's, tons of case studies of products built to fail. People say that Apple made sure their chargers like broke sooner so you'd buy more. In the case of continuous glucose monitors, if it's like an $100 billion company and you wear the product every 3 to 5 days, they don't want you to wear it for every 10 to 14 days because instead of being a $200 billion company, let's say, now it's a $100 billion company because they are selling less product. And so for the large corporations where profit matters first, they want more disposables. And I don't know if you know this about SF, but I went to the ER one time and they took my blood pressure and they're like, here's the disposable blood pressure cuff. Huge thing of plastic. I was like, disposable blood pressure cuff? You're not just going to sanitize a blood pressure cuff and use the same one? They're like, no, the new policy is we dispose of them every single time. And I'm like, every single time on a blood monitor cuff? Blood pressure cuff? I was like, that's insane. And so big companies are incentivized to throw away. And so as young entrepreneurs, as people who, like, I have the luxury of owning my own company and making my own decisions, I can value sustainability over profit in that way by making products last longer, which customers like more. So it's win-win-win-win.
It's a really win-win. And just to close up, what's that type of advice that you will give to that 17-year-old back again, now that you passed through a lot and that motivated you and that can motivate you as an innovator, because you were an innovator since then.
So if I could talk to
young entrepreneur Megan, the little high school student, as 26-year-old Megan, who owns 100% of a multi-million-dollar company, I would say to trust my intuition and my logic and my understanding of the world more than I trust other people's advice. Like, if you take everyone else's word as law, you ruin your opportunity to add uniqueness into the world and to solve problems by yourself. And so every time I built something new and exciting, it's because I saw that other people said it couldn't be done, meaning no one had done it before. And so I was like, in my soul, I knew, I'm like, I can figure this out. And then trusting that has led to all of the innovation and fun and success that I've had. So
I love it. I think it's really important
to follow your gut.
Like
literally,
like
follow
that.
Your gut. You're really credible on that side. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really amazing to have you here as my first guest.
Hi.
So I'm really excited to have you, and we will see you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.